Hi, my name is Lauren Kay, and welcome to The Games That Made Me. In this podcast, we talk to some of the games industry's brightest talents about the games that shaped them, as well as how they approach their craft. In this episode, we're talking to Ashley Burch. Ashley is an American actress, writer, and director. She is named for her roles as Aloy in the Horizon series, Chloe Price in Life is Strange, and most recently, Rachel Meyers in the Apple TV series Mythic Quest. Hi, Ashley. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. I mean, honestly, like your career has been incredible. And just to talk about the games that got you to where you are now. Like, honestly, when did your sort of love of games start?
I think I've literally always loved games. I saw a home movie recently where I'm a toddler. I'm like pre-verbal and I'm waddling around with an NES controller that's not connected to anything. So I think literally before I could talk. But my earliest memories of playing games, I think we had like a really old computer that had a knockoff of Donkey Kong on it called Larry Kong that I played a lot. I love this. Yeah, Larry Kong.
Was he like, did he like look like,
yeah. I mean, they like barely like a couple of pixels in different places. I mean, it was, Nintendo should have seen.
He had a mustache.
Yeah, he had a mustache. Also, Larry is such a funny name. But yeah, I played a lot of Larry Kong. My mom got us an NES with Mario, obviously, but then she wanted to use it as a learning tool. So we also had a Sesame Street game that we played as a family, which was cute. Oh, it was like the count, teaching you how to count and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So those are my earliest gaming memories. But I literally had a controller in my hand since I could walk.
I really loved educational games like back in the day. Like, yeah. I will say, like, I used to have I don't know if you had like the computer ones, like the Lion King or that
yes. Yeah.
Like those kind of, and jumpstart your way into like 5th grade and stuff.
Number Munchers.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They were so good.
They were really good. I remember there were a lot on our school computers.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool. Yeah, like Number Munchers was the only way that I liked learning math.
Exactly.
I hated it otherwise.
But then, like, with your brother as well. So did you guys like game together quite a bit when you were very small as well?
We did, yeah. We would usually play. He would usually play like more intense games, and I would watch him.
Yeah.
And then I would play, like, I was a big Final Fantasy head, and he wasn't really, so I'd play Final Fantasies on my own. And I actually watched him play Metal Gear Solid through first because I was intimidated by the stealth. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. It's too scary. But we would play like Donkey Kong Country together. And I actually think a game that we played a lot as like an actual team was Jet Force Gemini. We played a lot of that on
cool.
64.
What's that one?
It was like a co-op like Space Marine game where you go around shooting bugs as you do as a Space Marine. Yeah, so that was for the 64 and Nintendo 64. But he played a lot of different types of games, and for a while I stuck mostly with like platformers and RPGs, and then I slowly branched out from there.
You slowly got your individuality.
I did, yeah.
But I think that like for me as well, I had a lot of that with my brother, where it's just like, you know, they helped you to experience more games that you maybe wouldn't, like, give you that exposure to games that you wouldn't normally have tried yourself.
Totally. Yeah. I had to build up my gaming like confidence, I guess, to like try, I don't know, scarier, more intense games like FPSs and stuff. And yeah.
So when did you get like the bravery to take on Metal Gear Solid?
So I don't know if you remember, there were back in the day, Pizza Hut had demo discs.
Oh yeah.
So it would be like a PlayStation demo disc that had like, I don't know, I think it had like the first mission of Metal Gear Solid. It had like the first mission of like a Spyro game, and it had like one of the snowboarding games. So we got that demo disc and played like that first mission over and over again. We like couldn't wait for the game to come out. And when it finally came out, I think I did watch Anthony do like a complete playthrough, and then I went back and did my own. I think, once I like saw it and kind of knew what I was headed toward, I was like, okay, I can do this. But then I replayed it again, like, I want to say it might have been like 2015 or something. And I forgot how hard the shirtless fist fight on top of the Metal Gear at the end is. I like could not punch liquid for the life of me. It was really difficult. But yeah, I managed to make it through when I was younger after I'd watched Anthony do a full playthrough.
So you like knew the secrets of like Psychomantis and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Did he get stuck on it as well? Like with the Psychomantis, did you kind of work on it together?
Oh yeah, we were sitting there for ages and we kept calling the Colonel over and over again, being like, "What the hell are we supposed to do?" And I think he straight up had to tell us plug the controller into the other port.
Y'all, I've spent enough time in this area. I need y'all to sort it out.
Yeah, seriously, like there's nothing else to do. We do not know. Like, yeah, and that was in the time before like game FAQs. So it really was like we were like, if someone does not tell us the answer to this, we're screwed.
Yeah. Do you have like a favorite bit of the game that you like oh, this part is coming up. I really am excited to like revisit this.
I really like your first fight with a ninja, like when you're saving Otacon. I think that's, yeah, like right before you meet Otacon for the first time. For some reason, I just really liked that like level design, I think. And I think that is also the boss fight I felt the most confident about. All the other ones, like, are still sort of anxiety inducing for me. Yeah. But I think I'm better at punching than shooting. And although I just said that I couldn't punch liquid, but okay. I liked that boss fight a lot.
You can punch when it needs it done. You know,
that's
it's
right.
Fine.
Yes,
it's fine. You got this, 100%. One of the things with Metal Gear Solid, of course, is the voice acting as well. And you said like David Hayter's performance in particular made you sort of realize that wait, hold on, you can be an actor in games.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about Metal Gear and Kojima as a developer. Honestly, is that he's always been really cinematic, and so anytime a character is introduced in Metal Gear Solid, there's a little there's text on the screen that comes up, and it says their character name, but then it said another name, and at the time I was like, who is this? And I don't remember when the internet began because that is the era I come from, but it was deep enough into the internet being a thing that I was able to look up David Hayter, and I was like, oh my God, that's the actor. And I never occurred to me, I loved cartoons, and I guess some part of me knew there's a person voicing Chucky from Rugrats or whatever, but it didn't click with me until that moment that it was a job you could have.
Yeah, so do you think that in a way Metal Gear Solid influenced the way that you approached acting in general as well?
It was that's such an interesting game because of it's doing so many things. And I think in terms of like, it's sort of a spy espionage thing, but it's also a bit sci-fi and it's also a bit melodrama in a way. And I think it did help me sort of set a baseline of what games could do in terms of performance. And there are so many iconic actors in that game. I think that was my first Jennifer Hale game. So I think to that point as well, I had played a lot of games that if they had voice, it was like Spyro. It was a bit more cartoony. It was a bit sweeter. And I think Metal Gear was the first game I played that was grittier, that was fully voiced. So I think it did open up to me like what the possibilities of performance in games could be.
Hideo Kojima as well. It's crazy that he's still so, like, I love that he's still so relevant, but it's mad how long he's been relevant for.
Yeah. He's had a very storied career. It's wild. Yeah.
And do you think it's that passion for cinematics that's just kept him like alive and well within the games industry?
I think it's that, but I also think it's his gameplay sensibility. Because there's still games at the end of the day. So if Metal Gear was just cutscene after cutscene without satisfying gameplay in between, I don't think they would be as popular as they are. But they're always satisfying stealth games. He always does something interesting with the gameplay that I think keeps people. I mean, fans of his obviously are also there for the story and for the performances, but he's able to do both, which is why I think he's still so relevant.
If Kojima did offer you a role in one of his games
Oh my
and
God.
kept you in that little glass menagerie that he seems to be collecting with his characters. What kind of character would you love to play?
I don't know if I would get cast for this, but I think
Let's manifest it.
but I'll manifest it. I think a Psycho Mantis adjacent. I think being a villain would be fun.
Yeah.
Like one of his really unhinged villains would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that'd be sick. Yeah. And I can just imagine it now, like just like the craziness of the paintings in the background all changing. Oh, yeah, we have to make this happen. That'd be amazing. So, Toonstruck.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Like I'm equal parts what is this game, but also like I'm really happy that you brought this game into my attention because I need to divulge it. So, for anybody who doesn't know, can you explain like what this game is essentially?
So Toonstruck is an early 90s adventure game that is basically, I think it's essentially, I assume that it was inspired by Who Framed Roger Rabbit because Christopher Lloyd, who you might know as Doc Brown from Back to the Future, any number of other.
He was actually in Who Framed Roger
That's
Rabbit.
true. He's the villain in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Who terrifies me to death.
Oh, he's so scary.
Terrifying.
So scary. He is in the game, like literally in the game, like a la, I forget the name of the detective in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but it's like a 2D adventure game, but they just like filmed him on a soundstage somewhere, I guess, and he's like dropped into this. He's an illustrator that's been like sucked into his own work, and you're trying to like you're playing as Christopher Lloyd, and you have your like little cartoon buddy, and you're trying to find your way out of this world that you've created, and it's an adult comedy game. So it was, I played a bunch of adventure games when I was younger. I played Day of the Tentacle. I think I played Curse of Monkey Island, but I don't remember it very well. But Toonstruck, for whatever reason, of that era of adventure comedy game is the one that sticks out the most in my mind. I played it the most, I think, because it sticks out to me so much, and it's like such a seminal game because I think it was my first exposure to the fact that games could be really funny. Like they could be funny as sort of their main point. So, pre-Portal or pre-Borderlands, adventure games, I think, were like the place where you went to get funny games. And that was my particular funny adventure game.
That brand, that like sort of era of silly games was perfect.
It was great.
It was so good.
And the animation was really fun. And like, it was just such a bizarre premise as well. I don't even exactly remember who the villain is, but you basically have like a very like picturesque sort of Disney sweet world that gets corrupted. And there's this one image I have very strongly in my mind that there's like a farm with a barn house, and there's just like a couple cows hanging out, and they're sweet, and like a horse. And then at some point that place gets corrupted and the horse is being turned into glue, and the cow becomes a dominatrix and is like whipping the other cow. And it's like, it's probably too young to play this game now that I say all that out loud. But
No judgment here.
it was really dark, like dark comedy, which was not something that I had seen in a game before. It was not something I knew games could do. So that also really broadened my understanding of like what is a game. Because yeah, it was very much, I mean, there were kids in my household playing it, but it was very much not for kids. Even though it had that sort of cartoony aesthetic.
It is an interesting thing, like towing the line. I mean, especially like as a parent myself, like where to toe the line as far as like comedy with kids, because a lot of it does just go over their heads. Like, you watch those like Disney films where like there is a clear joke that was meant for the adults in the room.
Right.
Maybe not dominatrix, but
right.
The genie likes to get freaky every now and then. Anyways, but yeah, like it's interesting, but like I feel like I was still better for it, if that makes sense.
Sure,
like,
yeah.
We're growing up on like Monty Python.
Yes, totally.
It's like I adored it. It was so much fun.
Yeah, I do. I credit a lot of British humor, and I credit early adventure games with sort of like the developing of a comedic voice. And like there are cartoons that are excellent. Like you watch Looney Tunes and it's like, it's still incredible physical comedy. Like I think Dave Chappelle once said that his comedic influence was Bugs Bunny. Like, so there's great stuff in kids' cartoons, but there is like a depth of absurdity and comedy and stuff that comes through things that are maybe a bit more for adults. And also stuff, like I grew up in the time of like Animaniacs and Freakazoid, which are like so...
Freakazoid. Oh my God, the theme song is so good.
So good. They're so thinly veiled just for adult. Like they aren't crude in any way, but like the jokes are like, there's like 7 Marlon Brando jokes in Freakazoid. Like those were not for me. Those were, those were for the writers of Freakazoid. So yeah, Toonstruck is, I feel like, in a similar vein of being comedy for adults, but aesthetically it seems like it's for kids.
I kind of also want to see the behind the scenes of it, like of
I know.
them just filming Christopher Lloyd just walking.
Right. I really wonder, like, what was that because that was really ahead of its time, like deeply ahead of its time in terms. I think that was before like FMV games even, and like Tim Curry and Red Alert or whatever. I think that we all predated Toonstruck, predated all that kind of stuff. So I don't how did they get Christopher Lloyd? Like he's the original celebrity in the game. Like how did they get him? What did they tell him? What was going on? Like, because it's fully voiced. He did all the voice work for it and stuff too. So yeah, I wish I could see the behind the scenes of that.
Yeah, it seems like he's just one of those actors though as well who's just up for anything.
Yeah, he's just
I
game.
love it.
Yeah, totally.
Like I mean, in our generation, seeing him like he went from he was the bad guy in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Wasn't he the bad guy? I think he was the bad guy in Dennis the Menace as well. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think he was the one at the very end or something. But then he was Fester.
Right.
And like Fester, like he was very versatile. And then Doc, in Back to the Future, like he's so versatile.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a staple of my childhood for sure.
Yeah. It's like a tag team between him and Robin Williams.
Totally.
Gearing for first place.
Yeah.
But don't you feel like as well, it's just so nice to have like grown up with comedians like that who just are just really, really, really like they can do the raunch, but they are also very wholesome.
Yeah, he did have, especially I feel like in Back to the Future, there is his friendship with Marty is it's kind of sweet in a way, But yeah, that was the sort of fun thing about Toonstruck as well, is that he was the straight man, which I don't think ever happens for Christopher Lloyd. Yeah. Like he was the odd man out. He was like, what's this crazy place? Which is also like a funny role for him to be playing.
Oh my God, completely. And like talk about Tim Curry as well.
Right.
Like freaking hell. Like he also was a mainstay in our childhood, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still have fond memories of him as Hexus in Fern Gully.
Oh yeah, me too. Yes. Yeah, his was it Toxic Love song is like burned in my memory.
So suggestive.
Oh my God. It's very sexual. I think that's why I remembered it so much, because I was watching it as a kid being like, what's happening?
I feel sweaty. I don't know why.
He's like writhing around the pipes. I was like, what the hell?
Pollution. I want pollution like this. Did any of the other performances really stick out to you?
Man, I am forgetting the name of his little buddy, of Christopher Lloyd's little buddy. You have like it's like his main character that he draws.
Yeah.
Who might have been voiced by Rob Paulson?
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Because is that Homer? Was that the
no? Rob Paulson is one of he's Yakko, I think. In the
Yakko. Yeah. That's it.
Who he was awesome. So that was another game where it's like voice acting, but also like funny voice acting, which was really cool to see.
Now talking about it, do you think it's a game that you'd revisit?
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if I would. I mean, I think I would love to like watch gameplay videos of it. I do sometimes get a little frustrated going back and playing old adventure games because some of the solves are a little arbitrary. You know what I mean? It's like, why was I supposed to use this rubber chicken on a doorknob? Why would I ever do that? But I'm curious if it holds up. I'm curious if the humor holds up. But I do think like it was very ambitious as a game, which I still really respect about it.
Would you like to see it like remade, do you think?
Oh, that would be so cool. With like a modern comedian. That'd be amazing. Yeah, that'd be super great. I would love that.
What kind of character would you like to take?
Oh, maybe I'd be one of the cow dominatrixes.
Yes. Just like a little ode to the queen.
Exactly.
You know, everything's carnage. Let's have cow dominatrix. That's fine. And now we have Mass Effect. It's one that's featured quite a bit in our series.
Oh, I'm sure.
So when did you first get introduced to Mass Effect?
I think I was in college, and I was having a little bit of a rough time in college. I just like couldn't quite figure out where to fit or how to fit socially. And I remember talking to my brother and him telling me that I had to play that series. And so I brought my PlayStation, and I don't think I had played a game like Mass Effect before. And I say this with love. I love this series. The beginning of Mass Effect 1 is so confusing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. The level design is so confusing. The UI is so confusing. So I had tried it before, and then I was like, I don't know where I'm going. I feel like I'm already lost, and I just started this game, so I kind of left it. But then I was like, I need something for college, and games have always been a nice way for me to soothe anxiety. So I remember my brother just like kept bugging me to play it because he knew I'd really like it. So I went into it, and then I just got so hooked. I love the story of Mass Effect 1, but Mass Effect 2 is one of my favorite games of all time.
It's just the epicness of like everything that happens, like all of this set pieces, isn't it, of Mass Effect 2 that is just, it makes it so good.
Well, the other thing about it that I love is that it's so character focused. So much of the game really structure are all the loyalty missions that you can do for your different shipmates. And there are a couple of characters that I really like in Mass Effect 1, but there are so many in 2. Like, Morden is probably one of, if not my favorite video game character of all time. I love him.
I am the very major of a modern. I don't know the words, but he's so cute.
I am the very model of a scientist Solarian. I think
There you go. You got it.
Yeah, I love. If I could have romanced Morden, I would have. I loved him that much. The thing that I love about Mass Effect, all of them, but 2 especially, and I think Morden is such a good example of this, is there's such a depth of character. Like, Morden could easily be a sort of archetype of like a fast-talking, kind of dorky, kind of, not very human. I mean, he's an alien, but, not very attuned, like mad scientist type. They did such a cool thing with his intro where he like just executes them. Like I think there's someone that's causing him some trouble, and he's like, I'll just kill them because I actually have this person that I need to doctor, that I need to administer medicine to, and this person's causing trouble. And so he just like shoots them and then goes back to what he's doing. And it's such a like brutal, strange, like it sort of like twists your head where you have a perception about this character and it sort of challenges it. But his arc in the franchise is so good. It's so good. The way his story ended for me in Mass Effect 3, I like bawled. I loved it so much.
What was your party makeup? Who were your besties?
In 1, my besties were Rex and Liara. And I dated Liara.
Yeah.
In 2, I switched to Thane. Sorry, Liara. So my besties were Thane and Morden. And then in 3, it was, I forget who can actually be in your party in 3. But I think it might have been Morden and Garrus. Wait, I don't know if Morden can be in your party. I don't remember. Maybe it was Tally and Garrus. I don't remember. But
she's really cool too.
Yeah, I liked Tally a lot as well.
Yeah.
Everything with the Geth and the Quarian was, I mean, that's the thing. It really was like space Game of Thrones in different ways. Like the depth of lore and history and conflict between all these different species. The genophage as a concept was so cool and so interesting and had so many implications and so many different storylines. And that game also, like, I mean, talking about like what it made me realize games could do. I know people have beef with the ending of 3, but the fact that so many of your choices were meaningful and that there were so many different outcomes to different character stories. Like, I was emailing my brother as I was playing through Mass Effect 3 because I was so heartbroken by different things that were happening. Like, Mordin, in my playthrough, cures the genophage and then he dies. And I emailed Anthony being like, I'm so sad Morden died and da-da-da-da. And he was like, well, at least this didn't happen. And he sent me a YouTube video of a playthrough where they shoot Morden in the back.
Why would you do that?
I don't know why
Like,
you would ever
so
do that.
mean.
And then Rex is so angry at you for not curing the genophage that he shows up on your ship to kill you, and then you shoot Rex. And I love Rex.
Yeah.
And I was like, I cannot believe A, that anyone would do this, but B, that those choices are supported by the game.
Yeah.
Like, that is a pathway that you can have. Like, in my pathway, Rex was the king of the Krogan forever and ever, amen.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the fact that you could, and also the fact that Rex could die in the first game. Like, there is a flashpoint that if you don't talk him down from shooting,
he'll self-sacrifice essentially, wasn't it?
I think Ashley kills him.
Yeah.
If you don't talk him down, he gets shot by Ashley, I think. And he can die in the first game. So the fact that, like, a character that's so important to me in the entire series could just not be in existence for the rest of a lot of people's playthroughs.
Permadeath, yeah.
Yeah, it's an incredible dedication to the narrative branching of that franchise and all of the contingencies that they accounted for. And to make so many choices feel meaningful and so many playthroughs feel unique and personal was just, like, I think such an achievement. I mean, again, I know that people gave them for the ending, but, like, to me, the amount of ownership I had over my Mass Effect story, like, it's still, to me, like, one of the best franchises of all time.
Exactly. I think that's the thing. I think a lot of people, it's interesting what people focus on. Like, I have this beef all the time with Final Fantasy X. Everybody will bring up the stupid laughing scene and then, like, literally rate Final Fantasy X based off that. And I'm like,
That's
yeah,
so
but
funny.
what about, like, everything else that happens in the game?
Right.
And I think that's the same with Mass Effect. It's like, you're just basing it off of, like, literally a scene, but, like, you're ignoring all of the, like, incredible things that it paved the way for.
Yeah, for me, it's very much that series is about journey, not destination. Because I think it's always difficult, right? Like, any of these games that provide branching narratives are taking on a pretty Herculean task, which is they're trying to stick the landing for all different types of players and all different types of playthroughs. So it was going to be, I would think, nearly impossible for Mass Effect 3 to be satisfying to every player. I get people's issues with the ending. But to me, like, ending aside, the things that game accomplished are so, like unbelievable, honestly, that I forgive it of all its sins. It's given me some of my favorite characters in games. It's given me some of my favorite performances in games. I just love it so much.
It walked so that Baldur's Gate 3 could run.
Yeah.
You know, like, legitimately. We've had other actors on the show. We've had Ben Starr. We've had Sam Bayard. And, like, they as well also really hold us to this high standard. And it's like that thing. So do you feel like it is one of those things that, like, if you want to be an actor in games, you should play Mass Effect?
I think so. Absolutely. Because the performances in that game are, I mean, I think it's just, rightfully so, there are lots of games that get called out for having amazing performances. And I think Mass Effect sometimes doesn't get spoken of as much because there's something, I mean, it happens in TV and film as well. There's something about space operas that people just, like,
turn off.
There's just something about it that just, maybe it's, like, less prestige-y or something. I don't know exactly what it is, but, like, what the actors are accomplishing through voice performance in those games is incredible, because it's also, like, their earlier, you know, they still look great and there's a remaster, but they're very alien faces. And so sometimes there is expression, but you're getting most of the emotion and the performance through the voice. And the fact that, for example, Keith Farley can make you want to have sex with a frogman is, like, you know, it's endorsement enough.
It's an accomplishment.
It's endorsement enough.
Yeah.
He's a frog. And I was like, that voice though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
And-
was that with Garrus, who's
Right.
literally a reptile lion.
Yeah, he's like a reptile lion bird.
Yeah,
And
love it.
and you just love them. You really invest in their story. And the example I always give is that the end of Mass Effect 2, there's a suicide mission. They call it the suicide mission in the game. And you have your squad, and you basically go in to infiltrate some sort of stronghold of the Reapers.
It's a big game as well.
It's very
it's a lot.
yeah, it's a lot. But you have all these different flashpoints of choices. So like there's a moment where you yourself cannot go and storm this certain area. You need someone to like lead a B squad. And Garrus's whole arc, because you meet him in one, and then you find out in the intervening time between games 1 and 2 that he like had a whole team and he lost them. Like he was basically like he made a bad leadership call and it led to his entire squad getting wiped out. And he carries so much guilt over that. And that's sort of what he's grappling with in Mass Effect 2. And there's this moment where you choose who's going to be your B squad leader, and your choice is between Garrus and Miranda. And I remember I was thinking about the writing because I was like, I don't trust Miranda. I have not had a good relationship with her. But Garrus got his whole team killed. But then I had this moment where I was like, but he is so regretful about that. He'll never let it happen again. And so I just chose him as my B squad leader, and everyone lived. And it was this interesting moment where I thought back to characterization and I thought back to the narrative that was constructed to make a gameplay decision, which had not happened to me in a game before. But the narrative was just so well drawn, and the performances were just so good that I absorbed all of the character stories, and there are a lot of characters. And I used that to influence the way that I played the game. So to me, it was such a great marriage between story and gameplay. I just love it so much.
Oh, that's amazing. But yeah, I mean, like knowing what you know now with like Mass Effect 3, do you think you'd probably choose the same characters again?
If I did another playthrough, I might romance different people just to see. And in terms of choosing the people in the suicide mission, I think I'd probably make the same choices still.
Yeah. It's like with me with like Baldur's Gate 3, like I will still stick with the same people. Like I'll have all these intentions. I'll like, you know, think, oh, I'm going to be a completely different. No, I'm not that different of a person. I'm sorry.
I love who I love.
Yeah, I know. I have my babes.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, no, Mass Effect is just one of those incredible experiences. Talk about eras as well. You have Hey Ash, Whatcha Playin. How did the idea for Hey Ash, Whatcha Playin come up? Like, when did you both decide we're going to make this series?
My brother was working at Destructoid as, I think, the features editor at that point. And this was before Indie Game the movie, but he had this idea that he wanted to make a documentary about indie game developers. But he had never done that before, and he didn't know how to use a camera. And so he basically asked me if I would make dumb sketches with him so that he could learn how to, you know, use a camera and like kind of refresh himself on editing and stuff like that so he could try to make this movie. And we started doing the sketches and put them up on Destructoid. And they got kind of popular. And then RIP, we put them on GameTrailers.com, if anyone remembers that. Yep. And that's sort of where we got a bit of a fan base for the show. And that strangely took off in a way we didn't expect. And Anthony never made the indie game documentary. So yeah, it was really supposed to just be like a silly thing to help him learn how to use film equipment, and then it ended up being the thing that sort of launched our careers.
Were you like looking at films for inspiration? Like I mean, there's some episodes where you can definitely see like the action film type influence in there, you know?
I mean, yeah, we sort of put all of our influences, I guess, in that show. So just stuff that we loved when we were younger. And like I said, we loved a lot of British humor when we were younger. We watched a lot of Monty Python, but we were also huge fans of Spaced. So I think Spaced was a big influence.
Spaced is so good. I was literally just having this conversation with somebody like a couple nights ago, just about like Daisy is just I am Daisy.
Oh my God. Speaking of amazing female characters, like she's one of the first characters that I saw on TV that made me realize, because I was used to, again, in the era of television where like there's 4 boy characters and 1 girl, and the girl is the sort of like voice of reason, like stop having fun, boy, like just killjoy, like just not fun. And Daisy was one of the first characters that I got to see that was like as messy, as messed up as the other characters. And she's so funny. She has such a special place in my heart, Daisy.
Yeah, and she just has like she has so much ambition. She just wants to be like a better person.
But no drive, like no actual like like she wants to be a writer so bad, but she's like she never writes.
It's 5 o'clock. Let's have a party.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We're just having tips. It's just a party. It's like we're listening to the Time Warp. Like, you know.
She's so good.
At that time when it was starting to gain popularity, did you think that it would like lead you into these different opportunities in games? No.
Not at all.
Just doing the doom.
Yeah, I mean, I knew I wanted to voice act well before Hey Ash, but I definitely didn't think it was really shocking to us when game devs started reaching out and telling us that they liked the show. But yeah, I never that never crossed our minds. And then when it got popular, we were like gobsmacked. But it really, I mean, it was sort of the combination, I think, of Hey Ash and Destructoid that got Anthony hired at Gearbox. And that's how I got Tiny Tina in Borderlands 2, was that he was writing Borderlands 2 and sort of realized that he was writing Tiny Tina kind of like Ash from Hey Ash. He was like sort of writing her for me. And so, yeah, so then that's sort of how it all kind of led from one thing to the other. But I don't think either of us were like, surely this is how we get into the careers that we both want.
Yeah. If you made it now, how do you think you'd approach it differently?
If we made it now, I don't know if it would be that different. I mean, we would probably, there are definitely jokes that I regret making, so I wouldn't make those jokes. But then I think the format that we would be doing it for is probably like TikTok. So, but it would just have been easier. Like we would be doing it on our phones, and we'd probably be editing it on our phones, but maybe they would be shorter. Yeah, I guess that'd be the main difference, is that I think the format would be, they would be shorter. And a bit more like rapid fire back and forth. And there are some that are a bit more high concept-y. Like we had like a season finale of our first season where it was like a several episode arc based on Metal Gear Solid, which is so funny to think about now. Yeah. Having a season finale to a sketch show. So I don't know if we would be doing stuff like that as much, which makes me happy that we did it in the era that we did it, because we didn't, we weren't like trying to fit it into an algorithm. We were just like, this would be funny.
Yeah.
So we didn't know what we didn't know, which sort of let us just play and do what we thought would be fun.
But it's wild to think how things are different with creating content now.
Yeah.
Like absolutely wild to think that your phone is just literally. Because, like, what did you use to do? What kind of camera do you remember what kind of camera you used to film on?
I can't remember it actually, what kind it was, but it was bulky. I mean, it was like a proper, like, you had the screen that flipped out and like a boom mic that was attached to the top, and like it was a whole to do. He like edited on Premiere, I think, and for videos that like definitely don't look good anymore. You know what I mean? We had so much equipment. So yeah, it's really funny how things have changed.
I remember it being so bougie if you had a camera that like had the thing that flipped out, but then you could also turn it.
Oh yes.
I remember that being such a like crazy evolution. I can turn it to face you. Like, not that it would actually do much, right? But it's just like
you could see the frame. You want to see the framing?
Yeah,
yeah.
Like, oh my gosh,
yeah,
you can
totally.
see it at the same time. I guess from your perspective now, looking back as well, what do you feel you're most proud of from the Hey Ash, Whatcha Playin series?
I think I'm the most proud of the fact that I got the courage to start writing sketches myself. For a while, Anthony was the only one writing sketches, because you'll notice a pattern where my brother would do something first, and then I would get enough courage watching him do it to do it myself. But yeah, I was nervous. I always liked making my brother laugh, but I didn't necessarily have the confidence for a while to think that I could possibly be a funny writer. And so it took us doing it a bit, and me, like, as you say, like kind of understanding how to be funny on camera and what our, kind of getting in the groove of like what our voice was, that I started actually writing the sketches as well. And I'm so happy that I motivated myself to do that, because that's how I started developing a comedic voice and getting comfortable writing stuff and, you know, collaborating with Anthony on scripts and stuff, I think was sort of the precursor to me being able to be in writers' rooms. So I think if I hadn't done that, if I had just chosen to act on screen, I wouldn't have developed skills that I ended up really utilizing and needing in my work going forward.
So we touched on it lightly,
Mm.
but yes, Borderlands 2, or
Yeah.
well, Borderlands in general, you becoming Tiny Tina. So explain like how that came to be. I think you said about your brother was a big part of.
Yeah, so he got hired to write Borderlands 2, I think based in part on his work on Destructoid, and then also with Hey Ash, Whatcha Playin. And he was developing new characters for the game and was writing Tina. And, you know, I think he texted me and was like, I'm writing this character and I realize I'm basically just writing her for you. So do you want to audition? And I was like, obviously. So he asked the team if they would mind if I auditioned. We were all very wary of, like, he and I were very wary of it, you know, seeming like just full on nepotism. So I was like, no, audition. And so I auditioned and I ended up getting the part. And yeah, and it was my very first voice acting gig, which is really wild.
I know, that's so cool though. I mean, honestly, like Tina just must have been just so fun to play anyway.
Oh, she's the best. She's so fun.
So much energy.
So much energy, very much in mine and my brother's sense of humor and style of humor. So yeah, it felt again like just trying to make my brother laugh, which is a great way to, you know, have my first job go. Because it was intimidating for sure. I mean, it was this dream that I had for however many years. So to get to have it, the first instance of it just being like, yeah, just do what you've been doing for years with Hey Ash. Just try to make Anthony laugh.
Mm.
Yeah.
And was that a lot in how you developed the voice as well for her?
Yeah, I think I can't remember exactly when and how I developed, because she, you know, she has her like normal voice, but then she also like goes into like, she has like weird yells that she does, and I go into different parts of my range, and I don't know, I honestly don't remember how or why I went there with those things, but I think it really did come down to just like trying to make my brother laugh.
Do you think that's also why like you both just work so well together, that it's just like this friendship, professional friendship based on just joy?
Yeah, I mean, I think we really have like similar sensibilities. We grew up loving the same stuff, watching the same stuff, playing the same stuff. So I think our tastes are very similar. So so yeah, it's fun to work together because we're usually aiming for the same target.
Actually, you did say previously that like you had this friend Christina.
Oh,
who
yes.
was a big influence.
Yes. That is why her name is Tina. Anthony and I had a friend in high school named Christina, who we sometimes called X-Tina, who was just very goofy. Like, she was an incredible artist, like did really beautiful art, but was like such a weird, like little chaos gremlin in her day-to-day life. And so yes, she definitely was inspired in part by Christina, for sure.
Yeah. What was the experience like when you first went into the booth?
I was really nervous because I'd never been in a booth. I'd never voice acted before. I didn't know what I was doing. But my brother was there and he was my director as well, basically. So then it just sort of felt like after the sort of initial jitters went away, it was sort of just like doing Hey Ash again. And so I just learned the sort of technicalities of like you do 3 takes and how far away to be from the mic. And yeah, it was definitely like a learn on the job situation. But yeah, because I knew my brother and I knew what he thought was funny, it just ended up feeling like play, which was amazing.
Obviously, now we've had a live action interpretation of Tiny Tina. Like, what was it like when you first saw the live action version of Tiny Tina? And like, was it weird having somebody who you've voiced like kind of reimagined in that way?
It was really surreal.
Yeah.
Like such a surreal experience. Because there obviously have been game adaptations before, but I just never considered the possibility that something that I was in with a character that I voiced would ever be adapted. So it was just such a strange. When I saw the movie, it took me like a solid 20 to 30 minutes to just like settle into the fact that it was a movie. Because like hearing the names and like that's a character my brother created, that's a character my brother created. You know, like it's just so. And then I voiced her, and like it's just such a strange. It's just such a weird, surreal experience.
Just you having like a moment in like the
I was
audience.
truly, I was just like, this is weird, this is weird, this is weird.
Like out of body experience.
Yeah, it was really an out of body experience. And then at a certain point I was like, okay, it's a movie. Just like, but yeah, it was like such a weird, like cool, like a cool experience to be like, wow, we made something that was meaningful enough and resonant enough and people loved enough that it got made into something else. But it was at first just such a like weird, like a fever dream, like, how is this happening? You know,
what do you think is like the essence of Tiny Tina that people are just so in love with?
I think it's, well, I mean, it's such a compliment to myself, but I'm really trying to compliment everyone, which is to say, I think it's the combination of writing and acting and animation. I think it's like it's a combination of so many people collaborating, right? Like her character design is really fun and people really love it. Anthony wrote her so well. I had a pretty good job voicing her. And her animation is so fun. So I think all those pieces coming together create this like really lovable whole. And I think too with Tina, she is sort of a chaotic, high energy character. But I think what Anthony did that is sweet and I think really helped people to connect to her more is that she has a bit of a dark backstory. And she goes through loss over the course of the game. So I think probably like the most beloved Borderlands DLC is sort of about her coming to grips with the fact that, you know, Roland's killed in Borderlands 2. So she's not just, you know, like a joke bucket, as we say. She's not just like a place that you go to like get a ridiculous joke or have her talk about badonkadonks. She's also like a fully fleshed out character. So I think that's part of the reason too why people respond to her.
And can we expect to see her in Borderlands 4?
I haven't heard anything. So yeah.
And now we're on to Life is Strange. So what was the process like with nabbing the role for Chloe?
I got auditions for Max and Chloe actually. And I auditioned for both. And I ended up getting cast as Chloe, obviously. But I didn't know for a long time how pivotal she was to the game. Often, I think it's changing a bit more now, but often when you go into a voice session, you might not have no idea what game you're going in for, what character you're playing, or...
Yeah, it's still the same.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It changes sometimes, depending on what your agent can get out of the game developer. But, so yeah, I went in not knowing... I sort of assumed that maybe she was like a side character, or maybe she was in like one part of the game. And then I just kept getting more and more sessions. And I was like, I guess she's kind of important. And then it took me like maybe until episode 3, 2 or 3, that I was like, oh no, she's like your bud for like the duration. So yeah, it was just sort of the standard. I auditioned and I got cast, and I just didn't know at the time that it would become such a big success.
Is it one of those things when you're not really sure, like when you're not really sure that you're going to get, you're not going to be called in again, like getting back into the flow of the character? Is it hard to kind of keep track of that, or do you kind of have a safe space where you go to be like, oh, this voice is fine?
Yeah, I mean that's sort of one of the challenges and one of the muscles you have to flex as a voice actor is to be able to create character quite quickly. Especially because there are instances where you might be asked to play 1 or 2 other characters in a day. And you sort of are just given the context of them, maybe their age range, if there's an accent or not, and you just have to go. So yeah, that was something that I'd done at this point a handful of games between Borderlands 2 and Life is Strange, and I developed that muscle a little bit more. So it wasn't as difficult to slot back in. And Chloe was such a specific character, and I had a specific connection to her. So yeah, coming back in and playing her was sort of like riding a bike.
And like for those like really difficult moments, I mean, she goes through some stuff. How did you sort of deal with those situations where you had to deal and tackle with those heavy situations?
For me, the only way to get to that sort of depth of feeling that's required for certain moments like that is to sort of tap into similar experiences that I've had, which in some cases can be, it can be challenging bringing up those emotions again, but at the same time, it's sort of cathartic. Chloe in particular is such a close character to my heart because I had like recently gone through a loss when I was playing her. So she kind of became connected to me through the sort of processing. I was like sort of processing some of my grief through performing her, which was such a gift. So yeah, it was, there were moments where I had to like go home and just sort of like lay for a bit and like recover. But in general, it was really, I don't know, it was sort of healing and moving in a way to be able to bring those experiences to a character.
I sort of feel that recently, like with grief, it's one of those things where the series that shall not be named, it almost kind of feels like a Horcrux. Like you feel your soul latch on to something that helps you get through it.
Yeah.
And like it's an interesting, I think it is an interesting concept that like your soul gets attached to something like for you, like with Chloe.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a cool way of saying it. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely like a pin in that moment in time in that character that we developed a bond, Chloe and I. Yeah.
I guess with her vernacular as well, with the hella. Yes. Was it quite hard to like get yourself to naturally say? Because I'm guessing you don't say hella.
I do not say hella. No.
But like, was it quite hard to get like that down and authentic?
Yeah, there was definitely a couple of moments where I was like, "Don't sound like you're." I don't remember how old I was actually now when I played Chloe. I wasn't that far off from her age, thankfully, but I was still like, "Don't sound like an old woman, please."
It's like the Gen says with us. It's like, right. It's so fire.
Yeah,
it's so
right.
hella.
Yeah, it's like me trying to say bet and like actually sound convincing now. Yeah, there were moments where I was like, trying really hard not to make it cringy. But then people fans love it now.
It does. You sold it very, very well. With Max as well, I think there's just such a sweetness between their friendship together. I'm definitely like, especially as a teenage girl at that time, like I think it was one of those things where that story was such an authentic take at like what it meant to be in an adolescent teenage girl friendship.
Absolutely. I think that's why people responded to the game so much. I mean, the time rewinding mechanic and the mystery.
I do that. That's fine.
You just do that casually anyway.
Yeah.
That's I think obviously all extremely additive, but and compelling. But I think a big reason that people loved it as much as they did is because there aren't a lot of games that are about things like that. Especially not done in like a AA to AAA setting, where there's like a lot of, publisher support and stuff behind it. So I think it was meeting a need and an interest that I think people maybe didn't even know that they wanted, which is why I think it took off the way that it did.
With Max, how would you necessarily play her? Do you think that it is more so the friendly version that we get, or did you like to do some of the more destructive choices, I'd say?
For me, in terms of Chloe and Max, and this is just my opinion.
It's okay. No judgment.
It's not canon.
There's no judgment here.
For me, the way that I sort of envisioned it was that I think Chloe had an attraction to Max, but I think to me, Rachel was like her big love. And Max was her best friend. And that maybe also like in the grief of Rachel, like wires get crossed sometimes and stuff like that. I always saw them as like a very deep friendship. Because I just saw Rachel as like her where all of her affections really were,
100%.
Yeah.
And there's like that complicatedness of it as well, because I don't know if Rachel had her.
Right.
Like, Rachel was very much that free spirit.
Yes.
And I think when you're like, I can feel how Chloe feels when you are so desperate for somebody who loves you and gets you.
Yeah.
But the person who does love you and gets you is not quite the person who you want to love you and get you.
Right.
What do you feel was one of the more challenging moments of voicing Chloe? Like, what was one of the more difficult types of storylines to get right or lines to get right?
I think for Chloe, the main thing that I wanted to be aware of is not wanting her to feel like an archetype. Because like angsty teen is a thing, right? Like she's a little punk and she has blue hair and so I wanted her to have that edge and that grit. That's obviously how she's written, but I wanted her to feel not just like a stereotype of an angsty teen. Like I wanted you to be able to feel a little bit of like the sadness in her, a little bit of the like feeling that maybe she's given up a bit and she's become a bit like nihilistic. And she also has like a let's destroy the world streak to her. But I didn't want her to just be like anger and that's it. I wanted her to have shades. So that was sort of my goal in general with that character, is trying to find moments where she runs hot, but also where like you can just feel that this is a person that's like suffered one too many losses, and it's made that sort of like fire in her dim a little bit. So that was sort of like the needle I was trying to thread with her.
Do you feel like with the characters that you write now, like, do you feel like you take some of those lessons from creating Chloe, like, really, really working with Chloe's character? Do you take those on board for the characters that you create now?
Yeah, I mean, I always am trying to write fully fleshed out characters, especially female characters, because like I said, I grew up with not a ton of examples of like really well fleshed out female characters, which is why I love Daisy so much, because she's so three-dimensional. I think that to me is that is the mark of a good character, is when you can feel that they are layers, that there are, when you know how they would react in any given situation.
If you could meet Chloe in real life, what kind of advice do you think you'd give her?
So I feel like I just give her a hug.
I know.
Yeah, I feel like she just needs a hug and someone to listen to her, probably.
If she'll let you give her a
Give
hug.
her advice. Oh yeah, if she'll let me. That's true. That's very true. But yeah, I think I would tell her it gets better. I know that's trite, but it does. Like, if you let yourself be open to the possibility that it can get better, it can get better.
So Horizon Zero Dawn, I mean, epic. Like, to be basically the girl, the woman for the PlayStation for this era.
Thanks.
What was the audition process like for this one now? Because like obviously you've done quite a few things. So was there any like differences in how this one went?
Yeah, this one was a lot more thorough because they were trying to find the lead of their franchise, or what they were hoping would be their franchise, which they were correct. So yeah, I remember auditioning for Aloy once and then not hearing back for a long time and being like, okay, I didn't get it. And then I remember seeing either the same or very similar sides come through again, and I was like, huh, okay, well, I'll audition again. After that, I believe that I did, I can't remember if I think I had a callback, and then there was the first like proper session I did was for a sort of first look for E3. R.I.P. E3. Wow. So wild. And I remember going in, it was just like a short set. There's like a small cinematic section, and then they had done a sort of small playthrough of her sneaking through grass and seeing a machine and fighting and whatever. And I hadn't seen anything. I hadn't seen any art. I hadn't seen any, renders or anything. And so I had auditioned a couple of times. They brought me in for this E3 demo, and they were like, do you want to see what the game looks like? And I was like, yeah, sure, cool. And they showed me the gameplay, and my jaw dropped because it's such a gorgeous game, and it really hit me in that moment, like, oh, this is a big deal. This is gonna be a really big deal. Because I just didn't, you don't know much as a performer when you come in. I hadn't seen anything. I wasn't familiar with Guerrilla before. And this is obviously a new game, so there was nothing to like look up about it. So it was this strange thing of being like, oh, okay. And back then, I'm trying to think. I think there had been a couple of games. I mean, obviously there was Lara Croft, and there are certain, like, there's, Perfect Dark and that kind of stuff. But I believe that at that point, Aloy was the first protagonist of like an open world game or an RPG where she was, there was like in Mass Effect, you can choose to be a man or a woman, or, there are different games where you could choose your gender. And I think Horizon was one of the first games of that type and that scale where you could only play as Aloy. You can only play as a female character. And I definitely felt the responsibility of that in that moment where I was like, okay, I have to do a good job.
On the moment.
Because I didn't, there were back in the day, there were, I don't know if you remember, but there were moments where like there'd be a game that would come out that would have a female lead, and if it didn't do well, people would blame the female lead.
Yeah.
I
mean, they still do now, but yeah.
They still do.
Yeah.
Sometimes. So I definitely felt this thing of like, I can't be the reason that this game goes down, So yeah, that was sort of the beginning of the process. Was I auditioned a few times, and then when I finally saw it, it really struck me how gorgeous the game was and how big of a deal it was going to be, and I definitely felt a good pressure, but like a sense of responsibility to like try to do this character justice.
I seem to remember I remember seeing that demo and just seeing like, I don't know, there was something about being able to hide in grass that just felt so cool. I'm like playing Hitman games, obviously like you're used to stealth or whatever, but it was just something about like how fluid everything was.
Yeah.
That just made me think, oh, I can do anything.
Yeah. It felt very, to use a film term, like diegetic. Like it felt very natural to be in grass, like watching, like hunting. There was just something about it that felt immersive, I guess. Even just seeing it, and as you said, like the way the grass moved was beautiful, and the setting was so beautiful, and the robot design is so appealing.
Like that like spinal, like I can just see like the spinal column of just like gadgets, and it looks so cool.
Yeah. All the designs were amazing.
Was there a lot of like differences with recording this versus what you had done previously?
Yeah, I mean, we sort of took some time like finding the best groove in terms of best practices, because I think this was the first time that Guerrilla had done something this narratively heavy, and so then we got into a mode of I would have which I think is pretty standard now across the board, but like having a writer on Zoom or on a call that I could ask questions to, and having a director in the engineering room. And most video game recording sessions live and die on Excel sheets. So just the biggest Excel sheet that you've ever seen. And the nice thing about being a gamer was that I understand dialogue trees and conditionals, right? So like it wasn't hard to be like, okay, like I grokked very quickly, okay, this is if you haven't done this quest before. And like, but there's a bit of a galaxy brain thing that happens. And the interesting thing too, which I thought a ton about Jennifer Hale's Commander Shepard when I was doing Horizon, because you have to make every player choice make sense. And you have to make every mission make sense no matter when the player chooses to complete it. So, there's a bunch of missions you get in the Nora homeland when you first start Horizon and the world first opens up. You could choose to never do those until like the fight before the final boss. But she has gone through an arc of a kind. She's learned a bunch of stuff. She's grown as a person. But regardless, a player has to be able to go through that entire arc and then go, oh, actually, I want to pick flowers in the Nora homeland and like deliver them to this person and have it still feel congruent, like still feel like the same character. So yeah, there was a challenge to that was different than anything I had done before, which was basically like finding a way to use performance to justify any choice that a player makes, and having like a core consistent character that could have different shades to her, and you would believe that she would make different choices in the same way that like you could play Commander Shepard and do half and half Paragon and Renegade choices, and those choices need to make sense and feel cohesive for that character. That's what Jennifer Hale's performance, I played Femshep, obviously. That's what her performance does for that character, is that she makes every choice as a player make sense. And so that was something that I tried to keep in mind and tried to really support through performance for Aloy. Was like, she is a more specific character than Commander Shepard is, obviously. Like, you don't get to pick her backstory. She is a more fleshed out character than other protagonists, possibly, that you have like flashpoint choices for. But yeah, finding that like sort of center to always return to, while still letting her have an arc, and also letting the player feel like they're invested in the choices that they're making with that character, was like a puzzle that I hadn't had to try to solve before.
But even with this, like you had different dialogue options as well.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, keeping that authentic, because there is like this sort of more like even with Jennifer Hale, it was one of those things where you have the renegade, but I like to play harsh but fair.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the medium of those
Right.
things. Like how many different takes like did you have to do of everything?
Yeah, I mean, when in Horizon, when there's a flashpoint, there are 3 different options. So there's the icons, I think, are heart, brain, and fist. So it's basically like, do you want to be compassionate? Do you want to be analytical? Or do you want to be aggressive in this certain situation? So I would do takes of each of those options, and really it was trying to come at it from a place of, making those choices feel authentic. Like, how in the context of that particular mission, where I, because usually it's some sort of confrontation, right? If there is a choice of one of those 3 choices, there's some sort of confrontation happening. So like the example I can think of is in the second game, but there's a moment where you can have a conversation with Erend in Forbidden West. He's salty at you because at the end of Zero Dawn, you kind of left without saying goodbye to anyone. And he's being a little passive aggressive about that. And you have the option of how to interact with him. And having the context of who Erend is and who Erend is to Aloy, but also who Aloy was as a character, helped me be able to make those choices make sense. Like, okay, if you want to choose the compassionate option, Aloy does love Erend. He is a friend. He was there for her when she needed him to like fight this big fight. Like, take a breath, be kind to him, and explain why you did what you did. The analytical option makes sense if, as Aloy being like, I don't want to deal with the emotions of this. I don't know how. So I'm going to shut off my emotions and just go to my brain, because that is my safe place. And also I can justify the aggressive option as being like, I have so much on my plate right now. I can't deal with you. Like, I have to save the world. I don't care if I hurt your feelings. Like, so there are different shades to her that when I continued to develop her character, that I could make those choices make sense. So it was really coming from a context of like, who is this person? And how can I, using what I know about her and know about the person that she's speaking to, provide performances that are authentic and will feel real to the player.
Now that she's out and she's just such an iconic staple in PlayStation, how does that feel? How has that been to like take in?
I feel really lucky and very grateful. I didn't start the process of working on that game thinking like, oh yeah, this is going to be like one of the flagship PlayStation characters, You just go in and you're trying to do the best job that you can do. And it was the most I think I'd ever advocated for as an actor, actually. Like I as I was coming up, I was very which, I want people to get what they want out of the session, right? But I think I learned through Aloy that part of that is bringing my perspective, because that's why I was cast. If you didn't want my perspective, then you wouldn't have cast me. If you didn't like my interpretation of the character, then you wouldn't have cast me. So honoring that, and then, having moments where I maybe, I ask a lot of questions, and I try to understand the context of scenes. And then also like having moments where I maybe give my perspective and push back a little bit, possibly. Like, again, it was really important to me with Aloy, that she not feel like the Terminator. She's so capable and powerful, and I wanted her to feel layered, and I wanted her to feel fleshed out. And I remember there was a couple of moments with my director on the first game, Jamie Morlero, who's great. And we would have these discussions, and it was sort of like anxiety inducing for me because I'd never done this before, like as an actor, to be like, well, I think that it might be cool if we did this. But yeah, like having, there's a moment I think where she's like falling off a tall neck, and he was going like really action hero mode of like, you're in control and whatever. And I was like, could we do a take where I'm freaked out? Like, could we do a take where I'm a bit more like John McClane and I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, sorry. Where I'm a bit like, I'm falling off of like a 10-story building, basically, where I'm not completely in control. I'm not complete, I'm a bit like, this is scary, and thankfully that was really well received. And, we found more moments like that with her as well in like Forbidden West and in Zero Dawn. And so, that process of like advocating for myself and advocating for my perspective or being brave enough, or being, not even brave. I mean, I guess there's some bravery because I think actors, we can feel like we just want to give you exactly what you want and try to guess what that is. And I've learned so much more, especially from the other roles that I've been in now, like writing and directing and stuff, that like it's a collaborative process. And so I find when I'm on the other side of those things, if I'm directing, it's exciting to see what an actor brings. I want to see their perspective. It just heightens it. So I think Aloy was sort of the character that helped me start to make those shifts in my craft of being like asking a lot more questions and having a lot more conversations about, who the character is, and finding a place I think that's really satisfying for me, but also, for the people that I'm working with.
I love that collaborative like viewpoint that you have, in the sense of like, you basically do feel as an actor like you're serving the director, right? Like it was immense pressure to get the role, to please them enough to get the role. And then now you're just like, okay, but I want to still keep the job. Right. So you just like have that little thing in your ear being like, is that actually what they want? Is that actually what they want? But I think that's absolutely correct. I think that that's such a healthier aspect to have that be a collaborative effort. I always go back to like freaking George Lucas with Star Wars, the fact that like Harrison Ford seemed like he was much more in a collaborative situation with George Lucas, which is why like his writing in particular ended up feeling so strong and authentic, because he could say back, I feel like Han Solo would say this.
Yeah, I mean, he's responsible for like one of the most iconic lines in Star Wars, which is him saying "I know" instead of "I love you." He was like, Han wouldn't say "I love you" back. He would say "I know." And like now that's like his most iconic moment, And I know it can get like, people can be sort of like, my character wouldn't say that as such a like a cliche of like an actor, right?
There is a line. There is like a gray, a line.
That's the thing. It's not. To me, what I learned is that like I thought I had to be all the way over here into not having an opinion at all. And what I realized is that, like, no, there's somewhere in the middle. Like, at the end of the day, your director and the writers get final say. It's there. It's, that is exactly it. You know what I mean? But, like, I get to ask for takes. I get to ask to try things. I get to ask questions. I get to have conversations, And before I'd just be like, yeah, whatever you want. And I have no opinions. I'm not a person. And I just realized that, like, it's so much more enjoyable in general, and you get a much deeper and richer performance when you ask for things. And they can say no. And if they say no, you go, great, on to the next, I think it helped me learn, like, I never wanted to be a difficult actor. And what I realized is, like, asking questions doesn't make you difficult. Wanting to understand the context doesn't make you difficult. And wanting to try things doesn't make you difficult. It makes you an artist. It makes you a performer. So she really taught me. She really taught me to stand up and be a little braver. And so I have a lot of affection for her for that.
Yeah. And I think that that's something like particularly for women as well, like for us to have those kind of people, those kind of inspirational leaders, you know, to like look to for that. I mean, we have so many women characters who do stand up to authority.
Yeah.
But it's like that advice for ourselves.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
It just really is. It's really nice when you hear that it is actually, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to, you know, take that leadership, take that sort of like authority for your professional life.
Yeah. And I think I sort of, you know, I'd never been the lead of anything like that before. And I do think, you know, now I sort of see also when I see other leads in other contexts, you know, there is a sort of like this idea of being number one on the call sheet is like a responsibility. It's, you know, and especially like when new people come in, like making them feel welcome or introducing them to this world and this job and this team, you know, I think I learned a lot about how to be in that position through this job, because I think there is something about that it's not just like you're, you know, I felt, and Gorilla made me feel this way. I feel a part of the team, you know, which is so wonderful. So yeah, it taught me a lot about what it means to be like in collaboration with people.
And speaking of being in collaboration with people, obviously, like recently, we've had some stuff with AI come up recently, particularly with Horizon. What worries you the most about what's happening with AI as far as like what's happened with Horizon recently?
My concern about AI is really so much about, you know, so for some context, SAG-AFTRA is on strike against video games and has been for a little while now around AI as the main issue, as the main sticking point. And, you know, as I said in the video, Gorilla reached out and said, like, this was a test. We weren't like using this for development. And really, I don't think anyone that's part of the union, any part of membership, is inherently anti-AI being used at all. It's a tool, you know, and I think there are probably really great ways to use it to help like streamline the game development process. There's probably ways of using AI that like really helps like make things more efficient and makes people's jobs easier. We love that. We love making people's jobs easier.
Burnout gone. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there are certain things that if it can make development easier, that's beautiful. The thing that worries me is I don't want it to be, I think acting, like these sort of like these creative skills that are sort of difficult to define, like acting or writing, right? Like I'll just speak for those because I'm the most familiar with those. They're sort of ephemeral. It's like hard to, you know, you can study them and people do obviously, and it's good to develop craft, but there are so many different schools of thought and it's a little bit of a black box, I think. And it's sort of hard to measure. Like, I think people that aren't in the industry, they might respond to a performance and not know why, or respond to writing and not necessarily know why. They're just moved by something. And I don't think we're replaceable, you know, as creatives. Like, you can't replace the human spirit. But I am afraid of some developers trying to use AI to replace performers in roles that like I cut my teeth on coming up. You know, like I would be very surprised if, you know, you saw like an entire open world game where every character was AI. I'd be horrified. I'd be very surprised. But I do think like there is a risk of NPCs in those worlds, or you know, characters that like are in multiplayer games that do call outs, like things that are maybe less sessions and maybe are not as narratively heavy, that people could be like, I could conceive of a world in which a dev might be like, yeah, let's just have AI do that. And the thing that we lose is there's always a human perspective and a human touch to a human actor. Like you bring, and that's what so much of what I learned with Aloy is that like my version of Aloy is the only version that exists. Ashley Johnson's version of Ellie is the only version that exists. And I'm, like if you put a different actor in either of those roles, they would be they would just be completely different characters. They would just be completely different. Like, and I think it's probably the case for I don't know about The Last of Us, but for me, as I continued to play Aloy, the writers started writing to me, which they told me, like, right. So like they saw instincts that I had or perspectives that I had, and they shifted and went, oh, that's interesting that she's doing that. Like, oh, she's sort of doing this in a more sardonic way. We like that. Let's write more towards that. Let's do more, like, let's give her more jokes. Let's make her more, So again, that collaboration, like you can't collaborate with a robot. So even characters that might seem small or might not seem to have that much performance in them, the person performing them is still bringing so much to it. There is no role that is too small to have the human touch and to have that actor's perspective and their craft coming through it. And so that's one thing, is that I just think that you'll be like, as a gamer, I'll be losing out on those performances. And then as a performer, there are so many games that as I said, like between Tiny Tina and Chloe, that I learned how to be a voice actor. Like, I'm so lucky that Tiny Tina was my first role, because so much of it was like an extension of what I was already doing with my brother. But there was a lot I had to learn about being a voice actor. There's a lot I had to learn about, like taking direction or changing things up in my, my pace, or literally even just stuff like learning to speak slower, and it's that 10,000 hours thing, right? And so if you cut away so many of these roles that younger performers need to like cut their teeth and get their experience, we're going to be losing out on our next generation of great performers. And I don't want that as someone that works in this industry or as a person that loves games. So yeah, I as I said in the video, I've always been in support of the strike, because it's so important to get the protections that we need, because, union protections are always for, they're the baseline. So you can negotiate individually as much as you want, but like this is to protect our entire community as best we can, which is really important to me, because I want this. I love this industry and I love this art form, and I want it to be sustainable for people to keep doing. So yeah, does that answer your question?
I think it does.
Okay, great.
Absolutely. Yeah, it comes back to that collaboration. It comes back to that, like Harrison Ford, like what would AI have done with Han Solo?
Right.
Like AI would have been exactly what we said before. It would have been the robot actor just listening to everything the director says and then just giving you exactly what you've asked for.
Which for some people, I'm like, sure, they're like, that sounds great. But what I think people don't realize is that like so much of the joy of watching a performance is being surprised. Yeah. And I have that experience now as like a producer and a director, that my favorite moments are when people add things that, like, there's the show that I co-show ran, which is a spin-off of Mythic Quest called Side Quest, which is like an anthology of 4 different episodes. And it just came out on Apple TV Plus. We have 4 different episodes that are sort of set in the gaming world about very different subjects. And one of my favorite, I mean, I love them all, but one of my favorite episodes of the series is the second episode, which is called Pull List, which takes place in a Black-owned comic book store. And it's about these mega fans of Mythic Quest that are waiting for a Mythic Quest comic, but there's only one copy. So they're fighting over the one copy. And the actors that we cast were so amazing. I mean, all of our actors and all of our episodes are awesome, but it was like a big ensemble, and they just clicked and they found moments with each other that we didn't write. And they came up with jokes that we didn't write. And they just took ownership of those characters and they really breathed life into them and exceeded anything that we could have thought to do. And we were surprised so much by their chemistry and what happened when they bounced off of each other. And it just made the episode so much better. And I think when people don't understand that piece of it, that's what an actor brings, they don't realize what they're missing out on. And so yeah, I think any developer that's like, I want to be able to like push a button and have them say exactly what I want them to say, doesn't realize how much more you get out of having a person there that can like make an iconic performance of you, make one of your characters pop, like make your game pop, you know? So yeah, I just think it's a short-sighted thing, and we're trying to, it's like an answer to a problem that no one asked anyone to solve. You know what I
But you
mean?
know that somebody might at some point take that route.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is. Like, you know, we might be saying the say right now and say, oh, that's not gonna happen. Yeah, but all it takes is one person to just be like, no, this is what we're doing now.
Right. And again, it's this thing of like, it's not that I believe that like every developer is going to suddenly go out and replace all of their actors with AI. I don't think that's true. But again, we are fighting for the protection against the worst case scenario. That is what union contracts are for. It's a baseline of protection so that everyone's taken care of. And it's really important, you know, it's really important to get that. Like, I love our industry, and I think that most people know how valuable actors are, which is why so many people have signed interims. We have like, I think over 150 games that have signed interim contracts, which is amazing. So there are plenty of people that know what value we bring. And I think some people don't. And so we have to protect against that possibility.
So Mythic Quest, oh my goodness, like I'm sure you get it all the time, but like it just, yeah, it's so accurate. It's so freaking accurate. But yeah, what was it like to get involved with this project then?
It was another very surreal experience. I just got a cold call from my agent that Rob McElhenney wanted to meet with me about his new show, and I had never met Rob. I was just like, okay. I was like, yeah, that'd be great. Sure. But yeah, I was a fan of Always Sunny, but I was shocked. And especially being a kid that grew up with games, it felt like we had made it in some way. Like there was a sitcom, a workplace sitcom being made about a game studio. Like, we made it, baby. It's real, you know? And yeah, I'm so grateful to be a part of it, because I would have such horrible FOMO if I wasn't. But yeah, I started as a writer. And then I auditioned for Rachel, and I got cast as Rachel. And now I've been directing for the show as well now since season 3, and it's just been, it's been such an amazing experience.
So how much of like games development had you been like sort of exposed to before you started on the show, like in terms of like, you know, the sort of QA and producing and that kind of thing?
Right. Not a ton, honestly. I mean, I'd met development teams through my work on in voiceover. I worked at Valve for a little bit as a writer, but I wasn't working on a game. I was actually working on like the Team Fortress 2 ancillary content team. So I had some exposure to development through that, but I was really there a lot for like my knowledge of games in general and the industry. And obviously, you know, I have dev friends and my brother's a developer and stuff like that. So I had a lot of knowledge in that regard. But yeah, I was brought on to definitely bring some like nerd authenticity to the proceedings.
So how did you how was it sort of bringing Rachel to life?
It was really interesting because it was my first. I had done some on camera before. I don't really count Hey Ash because we did it in our like living room. But you know, they were mostly like smaller projects. So this is my first. It was like a really big leap for me, and it was pretty nerve-wracking at first. I was used to being by myself in a booth, so like having to hit marks and worry about where cameras were, and you know, memorize my lines and all that kind of stuff. And worrying about light or, you know, making days and stuff was not something I was completely used to. And so there was a bit of a learning curve for me in that regard. But then, you know, slowly over time, I became more comfortable. And I think we sort of figured out, you know, more and more like who Rachel was and where she fit in this larger company of characters. Because that's the interesting thing with sitcoms in particular is that, you know, you have these characters in mind, then you cast people, and that changes things. So, you know, Dana, who Imani Hakim plays, as written originally, was more of this like doe-eyed, oblivious, like, you know, and Rachel was like obsessed with her and like staring at her, and Dana was just like la la la. And Imani is too smart for that, truly, honestly. Like, she's like, she just reads as like so confident and self-assured and like aware that but we had great chemistry and she was really funny. And so there was this interesting thing where like on the day, what was sort of more of a comedic one-sided romance became a more genuine, sweet, like actual like connection between these two characters, and that sort of affected our characters. And so then it became an interesting thing of like, okay, so these characters are now a little bit different than we originally thought. You know, where do they fit and how can we make them funny? And what we ended up sort of landing on with Rachel, which I love and I think has worked, is that she's a bit of an idiot savant. So she's kind of a dummy. And she's well-meaning, but she's sort of very short-sighted and very suggestible and very gullible. And I think that ended up matching well with our ensemble, I think, having like a sweet dummy. Because all of our characters are, for the most part, really smart and varying levels of narcissist and Machiavellian and all that kind of stuff. And so having someone in the cast, I think, that can just be very easily manipulated and put her foot in her mouth a lot is very fun.
And like with Rob as well, like what was that collaboration like?
I learned so much. I mean, I learned so much through this whole process. We actually put it in the show at some point. I think he says it as Ian, but he has this sort of mentality, which I've really adopted as going into show running myself, which is like, you just have to make decisions quickly. Like, you can't hem and haw, you can't fret, you have to trust your gut in the moment and make a choice. And if you find out later that choice was the wrong choice, you go, great, we're making this choice instead. And you just move on. And it's the pace of TV and the pace of development that, like, if you get too bound up in what's going to be the effect of this or this choice, you're never going to be able to move forward. And so a big part of writing is rewriting. It's rebreaking. It's being like, okay, this works, and then sitting on it for a day and then being like, no, it doesn't. All right, we have to revamp this and do this and whatever. Or like making a choice initially and then seeing it on set and being like, that doesn't work. Okay, let's switch this out and whatever. Like, it really is just about like trusting your gut, but then also having the humility to be, you know, when you are presented with a better idea or something comes up on the day, an actor has an awesome choice or brings up a good point, where you're like, ooh, you're right, that doesn't actually make sense, that you can pivot. So that was a big thing that I learned from him, is like having the confidence to make a choice and then having the humility to change it.
Mm-hmm. And then being able to direct the final episode.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what was that like?
I was so, I felt so happy that they trusted me with it, honestly. I directed a episode previously that season, episode 5. And yeah, originally, I think David Hornsby was going to try to direct the finale, but he was like, he's also an executive producer and he's like the main storyline in the previous episode. And he was like, I cannot do this. I have too much stuff on my plate. And so, yeah, Rob and Megan approached me about directing, and I was very touched that they would trust me. And I won't spoil anything for anyone that hasn't seen the final episode, but there's a very big moment in it. And so, yeah, getting to work with Rob and Charlotte, who plays Poppy, on that, and really finding it and trying to like make sure that we hit all the right notes was really fun. It was very collaborative. You know, there were like moments of like really trying to figure out how to thread the needle on a moment that people were going to have reactions to. So yeah, it was a really cool challenge as a director, because I really as an actor, I like working with actors. I like seeing what actors bring. And so yeah, finding especially that ending scene with them was really, really gratifying.
And if Rachel had to create a game, if Rachel was suddenly the leader, what kind of game do you think she'd make?
I think she thinks that she would make Papers, Please, but she does not have the intellectual capacity to make Papers, Please, nor the talent. Oh. I think she would be actually really good at making a highly addictive game, which is not something that she wants to believe about herself, and morally would never want to make a highly addictive game. But I actually think that she would be really good at making like a a Candy Crush kind of game. Like, her aspiration is to make Cart Life, but she does not have the capacity. So, yeah, I think, she would probably make a really great Cake Mania.
Love that. But yeah, I think that's like something about the sense of humor as well that's written into the show, is that thing of like just being so confident in something that's wrong.
Yeah,
like, I remember the episode with what was it, when they were worried about like DEI or something, and it's like that thing about comedy, about turning it on its head, where like I don't know, what is your process about like taking something that is really wrong, but then having a character like believe it so much that it makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
totally. Yeah. I think it's the awareness of like that the joke is on the character. So I think we're pretty good about that, is of being like, there's an episode in season 4 where Rachel is defending child labor, and we very much make it the joke is on Rachel. But yeah, we really walked her there, I think, by being like, okay, obviously this person wants to believe that she's a good person and would not defend child labor. So it is this thing of like, what is the logic that she would believe, right? And so we have a game in Mythic Quest that's called Playpen, that's basically like our version of Roblox in the show. And so for her, she's like, oh, we have all these young developers that want to be able to make their games and make money off of their games, and isn't that beautiful? And and that leads her, that belief in being like, yeah, kids should be able to make games, then makes her, leads her to defending child labor in front of Congress. So there's like, there's a through line you can follow. She goes so hard and digs herself so deep that you're like, well, no intelligent person would do that. But, you can see how she got there. So yeah, it really is like, I think like grounding it in the character and being like, okay, what would this character believe? How do we walk her to this place where it feels authentic that she would be doing this? And then making sure that the joke isn't that like, isn't it funny that there's child labor sometimes? And more, isn't it funny that this person that considers herself highly moral is defending this terrible thing?
Would you rather work for someone like Ian, or would you rather work for Poppy?
Oh God. And she's death. I think, honestly, I might rather work for Ian because I think he'd be nicer at least. I think they're both equally bad bosses, but Poppy is so mean. I think I would rather have... oh, wait, no. Hold on, let me think. Poppy, actually, because Poppy does everything herself. She doesn't trust anyone else to do her job, or to do any job. So she's mean and she calls you an idiot, but then she just does the job herself. So you could actually probably work for her and never have to work.
Just coast.
Yeah. Versus Ian would make you come in at like 2 a.m. and like throw everything out and start again. So actually, yeah, I changed my mind. Poppy. Yeah.
And then if Mythic Quest was a real game today, do you think it would be successful?
I think it would have had to come out in a different time. Because it is very much, it's very much inspired by World of Warcraft. I mean, maybe if WoW came out now, it would be successful. Do you think it would?
Yeah, I think it would. Because even if it was, say, like bad, even if it was like cringy or like, it could still create content that people would love about it. It's like the Skyrim glitches, right?
Sure, yeah.
Like there's just such a joy in something that is made medieval.
Right.
But is really kind of broken.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, also we say in the show that it's like one of the most popular games of all time. So I'm sure it'd be awesome if it existed.
Yeah. What about Ian though? Do you think that he would be successful?
Oh yeah, for sure.
In the case of the show.
Oh my God, of course. I actually had a creative director friend of mine text me after watching the first episode, because there's a moment where Ian comes in to a group meeting, like a company meeting, gets really mad and throws a bunch of stuff off of a desk. And he was like, I've done that before. And I was like, don't do that. But also, yes, we did it. We made it accurate.
So there's the question that we ask all of our guests every episode, considering all of your choices. So we have Metal Gear Solid, we have Toonstruck, we have Mass Effect, we have Borderlands 2, we have Life is Strange, Horizon Zero Dawn. What would you say your game choices say about you?
I think they say that I have pretty eclectic taste. And yeah, I think that I guess I'm a big fan of performance in games because these are all pretty narrative heavy performance-y games, and that I'm a child of the 90s, maybe.
I think, and not to interject, but
No, please.
I think it says that you have a lot of bravery.
Oh.
And there's a lot of bravery weaved into all of these because there's a
that's nice.
bravery in comedy. There's a bravery in Mass Effect and, you know, choosing your partners and that kind of thing. And yeah, I think like Life is Strange, Aloy, I think these all say that, you know, despite everything, you've let your bravery speak for you. And that's how you've been able to grow.
That's very nice. Thank you. That's very sweet. Okay, I'll take that. That's my answer.
There you go. You're welcome. If there's anything that I can give to you, I'm glad to give you that. But honestly, it's been such a joy to speak with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, anytime.